Well, our moms think we're funny.
Hey everyone, I'm Acomi.
Hey everybody, this is Turk182.
We weren't talking about shady shit.
Nope, not at all.
No.
What? There's the thought.
Us? Us? No.
So yeah, getting back into our discussion of I don't know. Don't even really know what to call this. In defense of comic book movies, or
I called
Martin
it.
Scorsese should watch his fucking mouth. No, it's just not.
We're gonna send this deleted clip to you, Martin Scorsese. Then you'll be sorry.
Yeah, there's a reason why Martin Scorsese makes really good gangster movies. And it's just he's not somebody whose bad side I want to be on.
No, I entitled the first part "In Defense of Superhero Films," so
Oh, okay.
I think that's basically what we're doing here. We've had a lot of people. Oh, I wouldn't say a lot, but we've had several people, many of whom are prominent, saying that like they don't consider superhero films to be cinema. We did a lot by way of introduction last episode, and so we talked by and large about Martin Scorsese's statements on it. So today we want to talk about Jodie Foster's statements on it.
And they are by no means, the only people that have said anything. But the reason that those two of them stood out to me is because I do like and respect the work. I don't respect them because I don't know them.
Right.
I only know of them what they found, deemable to share with me as a public, and I guess what other people have said about them in, some form of media or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know them. So I don't respect them. But I respect the work that they do, and if I ever got a chance to meet them and get to know them, then yeah, maybe we could respect one another, because it's that respect is a personal thing,
Yeah.
But I do respect the work they do, and for someone like Jodie Foster, and I can forgive Jodie Foster for Bugsy Malone,
Right.
which is. I still don't understand that movie, and I just gotta take a side here and be like, I don't understand Bugsy Malone. What the fuck was that movie about? Why was it made? Who thought it needed to be made? How was that nominated for awards? I'm glad that Jodie Foster won an award, because she's always been an incredible actress.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to like Taxi Driver and this kind of thing, right? I think Bugsy Malone came before Taxi Driver, and so she's always just been like ahead of her craft. Or maybe just like right on par with her craft from a young age, and then growing up, that just then kind of elevates you to being ahead of the craft.
Right.
But she's always been fantastic. But still, Bugsy Malone, I don't understand who the fuck thought that you need to do a 1920s gangster movie using kids from the age of like 13 to 16. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Nobody needed to see it. And then the full like young like preteen like chorus show that they do in there, like 5 minutes of them put on a chorus act. Like, what?
Yeah, that trailer was the most uncomfortable I've ever felt over any movie ever.
I was just like, I don't understand it. Anyway, but I like her. In the directing that she's done, I like her as a director. I like Little Man Tate. That's it's not going to be like on my favorite movies, but you asked me about a movie that I like. I like Little Man Tate. Mm-hmm. You and I have talked a lot, even when we did our recordings, for this weekend, we talked about movies like Hotel Artemis, which I think she technically was retired and kind of came out of retirement of sorts to do that movie, which is also something that made me be like, what? Because Hotel Artemis is not a good movie. It's got an interesting premise. I'm not going to say it's a good premise. It's got an interesting premise, and it's cool to watch. I like it a lot, and I like her character in it. I like the way she carries herself. Mm-hmm. It was. I don't say this in a bad way. It was kind of hard for me to see her like shuffling around as an old woman.
Right.
And even though she's playing a character, and I don't know, how much of that is like, I really kind of am an old woman now, because she is an older woman, and how much of that was character. I'm thinking that was more character, but I like her character. I like the way she carries herself. I like the way she portrays that character. Of course, I love Batista and all that stuff, and then Sterling K. Brown, who really, even though he's a prominent figure in the movie, his character is really just more of this guy that just kind of walks around and just is like, I'm the soft tough guy.
Yeah.
I'm only doing this because of one reason. I was kind of out of it. I'm back in it because of my brother. If anybody was at Brian Tyree, I think is his name, the guy who was in Atlanta and stuff, was a really good actor. but Sterling K. Brown, he doesn't really get a chance to, I guess, show a lot of like. He doesn't really get a chance to bring a lot of that character to life. I think he was able to bring his character in Black Panther to life more before he got killed in the beginning than he does with this one. But then the character's not really written that way. Right. But he does a great job with that. I like looking at him, and I loved his interactions, even with his whole thing with Charlie Day, when Charlie's just trying to be a big tough guy, and he's like, yeah, I see just how spongy you are. That's how soft you are. You are soft until you get wet, and then you're just a complete sponge. You know, I mean, sorry, you're hard until you get wet, and then you're just a complete sponge. But then he doesn't call him. He just, yeah, man, sure, whatever. I'm gonna walk away. You know, you take care of yourself. He does a really good job of that. I really like Hotel Artemis a lot as far as a movie, but it's really just a fun watch. It's a fun watch. It's nothing serious. And to be in a movie like that, and then to say like, you know, yeah, Marvel movies are not real movies, and I'm like, yeah, but they're no more or no less of a real movie than this movie right here. Right. And
which is a far-fetched action story with fantasy elements, so how is it really different than...
Right. And Jodie Foster, again, I can't say enough about, you know, like her acting skills.
Oh, she's incredible.
Anybody that's ever seen Silence of the Lambs, yeah, you've seen Silence of the Lambs, you've seen Jodie Foster act, and, you know, it's great. But people who, if you don't know this already, that final scene in Silence of the Lambs where she is there with you know, Buffalo Bill, James Gunn, or Jamie Gunn, Gum. I don't think they ever really said what his real name was.
It's been too long since I've seen it. I don't remember.
Well, they say she's when she's talking to a woman, she's like, she ever mentioned like a guy like James Gum or Jamie Gum? Which I'm like, how James? It's either James with an S. No one just calls themselves James. You know, it's like, well, we only had one son, so he's going to be James and not James. You know? Anyway, but in that scene where she's in the dark and he's got the night vision goggles on, and you know she's wandering around in the dark, and you can see the look on her face where she is like lost. I mean, she can't see shit,
and you can tell she is just scared out of her mind.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, that scene is not shot in the dark. They could not shoot that scene in the dark with night vision goggles. There is complete light in that scene, and you can tell that. And there's two scenes in there. One where he goes to reach for her, and you can see the shadow of his hand on her back. If it's in darkness, there's no shadow. And there's another one where there also shows a shadow too, which there wouldn't be a shadow in complete darkness. So if you look at that and you can see that level of terror on her face, and she's pretending to be in dark when the room is fully lit.
Oh yeah.
She's a phenomenal actress.
Very, very good.
So I'm not going to downplay that at all. She is incredible. I've always liked her. Even Elysium. I love her in Elysium. I like Elysium. A lot of people don't. But I like Elysium a lot. Matt Damon does a really good job in that. And Elysium is a nice, like, fun movie. And I think it raises a good point. A little heavy-handed. But not to the point where it's like beating you over the head with a message. And she's really good in that. I think she looks really smart in that too. Not like smart, like intellectual, but she looks really like her dress and everything. You know, I'm a big when it comes to like, you know, women dressing, especially in like power suits and stuff like that. And
you would like Karen on The Office.
I don't know.
You didn't see past season 1, so you haven't seen Karen. But
okay.
Yeah, she's cute.
So even in, like I said, Elysium, I love Jodie Foster. I mentioned Maverick and everything, how much I love her in that. She's great. And, you know, she's been in, you know, Jodie Foster and all kinds of stuff. Crow fan and I used to make fun of Nell all the time. And he would, like, we would talk, and just out of nowhere, he'd be like, right, check a bay. You'll remember that. And I'm like, but that doesn't stop that. I mean, just because we make fun of that movie doesn't stop her from being a good actress and, you know, doing a good job in that movie and all that stuff.
We make fun of shit that we love all the time.
Yeah, we do. So for her to kind of say that, being a actress, you know, Academy Award-winning actress and director.
So what exactly does she say? Is it just the same thing as like Scorsese, just saying they're not cinema, or how does she phrase it?
Right. I'd have to look it up again because it was something she recently said where she was like she kind of didn't respect them and she didn't like them, and like they were, you know, they were taking
bureaucrats. I have no respect for them.
There was, if I remember correctly, it was basically the effect of that. These movies were taking away, I guess, from real movies that could be made more like dramatic and like movies that with a point, but they weren't being made because these movies are being made, and they're kind of taking the place of them. But that again goes back to a Hollywood thing. Hollywood can make these movies if they wanted to,
right?
You know, and there's people out there that want to see these movies, but you have to commit yourself to it, and you have to follow it through. You know, just like we were saying about, you know, about Justice League and Batman vs Superman, all those things like that, where it's like, if you're going to make a movie and you're going to do it, you're going to have to make it through. You're going to have to devote yourself to it and be like, okay, this is what we're making, and let go, and, you know, and let it be. And stop trying to control everything, and stop trying to make everything fit into what it is. Sometimes you're going to make a movie, it's going to be a great movie, and it's going to fall flat because it comes out at the wrong time. That doesn't mean you need to take it and reshape it to what you think people want, because that's just tearing up everything. Because if it still fails, what have you done? You've compromised everything. You've destroyed something that could be really good. This could be the next Mr. Lovejoy, but instead, you know, you don't have anything.
Right, yeah.
And so the original premise is dead. What you turned it into is dead. And you're going to say, well, I'm not going to take the blame for it, so I'm going to blame everybody else that was involved with it. The director fucked it up. No, you fucked it up.
Right, yeah.
You know, if it was going to fail, let it fail on its own merit. Or if it failed and, you know, because the audience wasn't right for it, then, you know, then recoup that later. There's so many movies that have found their proper audience later on. Now you say, well, that, you know, that doesn't account to the box office at the time, but isn't money? Whether I'm making my money through like off the first ticket sales, which is something else I just can't stand. A movie's only successful if it makes a shit ton of money the first week. We can't let a movie grow and find an audience, you know, especially when it's like, you always want to...
Who's ever heard of a movie with a cult following?
Right. Hollywood always wants to put a movie up against another movie and then have like this cage match. And then when your movie fails, you say, well, it sucked. Well, no. You know, you purposely put it up against another movie, you know, that probably was outweighed by a good, you know, 100 pounds. And then when it didn't win, you're like, oh, well, it sucked. Well, you did that shit. Right. You know, and...
Well, that's exactly what we were talking about in part one, is that they don't look at what elements of this makes this work. They look at it and go, the found footage, let's do that. Right. Hey. And it's just, they're the ones fucking it up.
And so maybe it didn't win this first match, right? But that movie is eventually going to tire itself out. And your movie, if you still promote it and take care of it and treat it properly, can still make its money back, and then can still overcome. There's a lot of movies that don't come in number one at the box office this week, but then dominate the following weeks.
Yeah.
And so why are you pinning everything on that first week? And then let's say that it doesn't do that, but then picks itself up later, you know, in like rental sales or, you know, like online buys. That's still your money. Now maybe a little... You may be not getting as much as you did before, but let's look at it like this. If I go and watch a movie in a theater, even if I love it, I'm probably only going to see that movie once. There's some times where you make, you know, like some of the bigger franchise movies like Harry Potter and shit like that, people will go, and I got to go see, you know, I got to go see this movie again, or I now want to see it with this group of friends or whatever. Maybe.
I watched the first Avengers in theater twice. That was the only movie that, like, I watched it, I walked out of the theater, and in the parking lot, me and the group I was with, we were like, I kind of want to see that again, yeah? And so we went back in and watched the first Avengers again.
Well, I told you that when I went to go see Watchmen the first time, I went to that midnight show, and when I bought my ticket for the midnight show, like the day or two before, and then that night when I went to go see it, I bought my ticket to see it again the next day.
Right.
So, you know, I've done that before, but in the theater, you know, there's a lot of people that are only going to see that movie once. They're only going to pay their you know, like $10 to $15 whatever to see it that one time. But when I buy it on Blu-ray, DVD, or whatever, I'm paying anywhere from $20 to $35 for that movie. That's 2 to 3 times what I paid to see it that one time in the theater. So you're still making more money off of it, even though you've got to pay distribution, which you're still doing that with the other thing. So to just write it off as if, well, it didn't do well in the theater, and so now it's a failure.
Right.
You can still make a shit ton of money off that movie if you continue to take care of it. That's like saying my child, I put him I put my baby on the toilet, and they didn't go pee that first time, so now I'm kicking them out the house because you're no good to me. well, no, you're not going to continue to nurture them and try to get them to go.
Right.
Like, no, they didn't do it the first time, so fuck them. You're not my kid. I'm going to cut you loose.
Kick them out in the yard and hose them down.
Right. It was like, no, you still take care of them, you nurture them, and recognize when you have a bad movie, it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
Stop trying to pump money into a bad movie. You know, and you see that so many times. You're like, yeah, but and I understand. Sometimes though, you get so invested in a movie, it's like, I've got to try to recoup something on this.
Right.
I have to. You know, and it's like, and unfortunately, it's like that scene in I think it's Toy Story 2 when they're going through the TV channels and they come across I think it's the Toy Barn commercial, whatever.
Alice Toy Barn.
And he's like, go back. He's like, too late. I'm too far gone. I gotta keep going around the circle and come back. It's kind of like that. It's like we've put so much money into this movie, we can't release it the way it is right now, and we can't just shelve it. That's like, you know, $30 million that's just gonna be sitting on a shelf. Only thing I can do, as much as I hate it, is put another $10 million into it and hope that we can get something back. Because right now we're not getting anything back.
Right.
You know, so even if I only get 20 out of it, I've only lost 20 as opposed to me. You know, I put an extra 10 million into it, so I paid 40 over it overall. But it's better to lose 20 paying 40 than to lose 30 paying 30.
Yeah.
You know, I know you look at me like, wait, that doesn't make any sense, but yeah. And then still going back to it, we're still talking about just box office. We're not talking about what you can pick up later. And heaven forbid these movies turn into cult followings where you've got releases upon releases upon releases. I mean, you look at my DVD shelf, my video shelf right now. I've got, I think, 5 copies of Fright Night.
Right.
You know, I mean, not everybody's me, but there are thousands of people like me. There are 100,000 people like me that are like, yeah, I have this movie, but they came out with a new limited edition. They came out with it on Steelbook, which is the exact same copy I already have. They didn't do anything else except for put it in a fancy Steelbook with a new cover. Right. I have to have it. I was just talking about that with Slumber Party Massacre.
Yeah.
Shout Factory limited edition one. It's like under $20, Steelbook on Blu-ray. I only have it on DVD. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, do I want to pay $20 to buy Slumber Party Massacre with the Driller Killer, right? And it's not a movie I love, by the way. It's a movie I like, but I've given it some serious thought. I don't think I'm going to do it, but I did think about it.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously I'm still thinking about it because I'm talking about it.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, so you can still make movies in a movie that's good. You're going to... Sorry, just real quick. Did you notice in that scene right there that all the bottles on the table were all Dasani bottled waters, and all the labels were turned to look straight at the camera to all say Dasani?
No, I didn't notice that, but I've seen that with a lot of like product placement. Which my favorite moment of product placement in any movie is
Wayne's World?
Well, yeah, there's that shit. I almost forgot about Wayne's World.
It's like people only do things just because they're getting paid, and that's just so sad.
There was it's the movie Kung Pao, where he's walking through the courtyard and they all are eating Taco Bell and the bags are all facing the camera, and as he's walking along his characters sing Taco Bell, product placement with Taco Bell. It's great.
So anyway, you know, that Hollywood could make good movies if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. And I think so I'm going to go back to a story about American Beauty.
Oh, yeah.
American Beauty is a great film.
Phenomenal film.
It really is good. American Beauty was an art house film, and I'd have to look it up to see exactly who it was made by. Maybe was it Buena Vista or one of those places? Anyway, a really good movie. But I think ultimately what it came down to when you followed it back was that American Beauty was made by like Disney.
Right.
Under one of their like their independent imprints. Mm-hmm. Like here's one of our independent studios that was owned by the parent company of Disney. And to get this movie made, we asked people to like work for scale and that kind of stuff. Right. And they're like, well, wait a minute. You only did it this way so you could call it independent film, mm-hmm. and you could save a bunch of money on it, as opposed to just doing it the regular way and paying these people what they are worth, and you know, and it got all the acclaim and all that kind of stuff. And they do those kind of things there. And then a lot of times they'll have these imprints, or they'll find these independent like studios or studios, right? And then they'll gobble them up and they turn them into garbage. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, wait a minute. But then you're going to complain that, well, not you, but some of the actual complaints like, well, these kind of movies aren't being made anymore. Well, that goes back to Hollywood. Mm-hmm. That's the industry you live in. That's the industry that you work. That's what you've devoted your life to because of your craft or whatever reason why you decided to. Yeah. That kind of change has to come from you.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of these people, there's people that all the time that sit there and go, you know, I got tired of waiting this. I'm going to make my own movie. I'm going to get some people together. And you have the ability to do that. Some of you actors...
To make the kind of movie you want to see.
Make tons of money. And, you know, and I realize you probably don't want to use your own money out there to do this or whatever. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you don't have enough of it or whatever. Maybe it's too much. Because, I mean, a bad movie can bankrupt you. But you could do that if you wanted to. You could just step out on your own and say, okay, once I make the movie... right, and I get some backers, get some producers, anything. All I gotta do is just get someone to distribute it.
Right.
And that's easy enough. And when I say it's easy enough because if you go to Sundance, you go to Telluride, you go to any of these film festivals, what do you find? You find a bunch of people with no money and no connections making a movie and putting it out there and hoping that somebody will deem it worthy of distribution. You slap your Hollywood ass name on it, I'm sure you're going to have people chomping at the bit too. So don't tell me that these movies can't be made because of all these superhero movies when you are more than capable of making some of these movies yourself and putting it out there, but you're not doing it. And you may have some really good reasons for not doing it, but don't throw it all on us as the viewer. Right. Because if you want to have a conversation with me, and I'm not challenging anybody, right? But like if you want to have a conversation with me, you come on down, Jodie Foster, all right? You come down to my house right now, you and me out on the front lawn, all right? I
like to throw these hands.
That's right. It's like, yeah, I'll be the big gentleman, man. I'll be skins, you can be shirt. We'll just throw it out. It's not like that. But I mean, you come and you talk to me and you ask me about the movies I like. You look at my video collection, and for people that don't know, my video collection, and there's a bunch of movies I haven't added on there recently, so maybe about 10 or so that I haven't added to my spreadsheet, my app thing. Right. But I've got close to 900 movies. Nice. DVD and Blu-ray. That's not including my VHS, which I still have. Right. Yeah. So, and I think the VHS might add another like 100 to that. Yeah. So I'm getting close to 1,000. Right. Right. And so you want to talk about movies and look at the things that I love, and not everything that I love do I own. Right. A lot of reasons movies that I own, and this the category is movies that I own because I really, really like them. Movies that I think are worth owning. There's some movies that I've bought that I'm like, I probably won't watch this movie. Yeah, I can't see going to my shelf and picking it up once a year or maybe once every 2 years, right? But it's one that it has a significance to me that I feel like I need to own it. I need to own this movie. Right. And there's sometimes where it's like, here's a movie that I enjoyed, and I don't think a lot of people know about it, and it's one that needs to be shared with people, and I'm going to buy it. That way I have it on my library that I can share it with other people because it's one that I think that people need to know about. Right. And there's some movies out there that I love that I don't own, and I was like, you know what? I like it a lot, but I can't see myself owning it. So, just what's in my library is not everything that I like. But I've got a ton of movies of different genres of, just all over the place. So it's not just like everything is filled with just my Marvel movies. So if I'm looking at my shelf right now, I've got 2.5 shelves that take up all of my superhero stuff. Yeah. 2.5 shelves out of what, 1, 2, 3, 4, was that 7? So my 3 bookcases of movies have 7 shelves apiece.
So 21 shelves.
And each shelf probably holds maybe 25 to 30 movies?
That looks about right. I'd have to count it to really know for sure, but yeah.
So out of that then, only 2 shelves of that are superhero movies, and out of those, there's I've got some special edition ones. I got the special edition of Iron Man, of Dark Knight Returns, and 300, which take up a lot of space because of the box that it came in. Because the Iron Man one came with a sideshow mini bust, and then the 300 one came with a mini bust too. So those take up a lot of space. They're taking up the space of like maybe 5 to 6 other movies. Probably, yeah. So because of that, then I'm really down to just 2 shelves, not even 2.5, just 2 shelves of comic book movies, because that's how I have them separated. Right. And you look at everything else over there, and I think outside of my sci-fi, my next biggest selection there are my is probably going to be my dramas and thrillers. Right. Yeah. So this is someone that loves that kind of stuff, and and within the past 15, 20 years, I've really slowly been moving my way into documentaries too, because it's something that I've always I didn't know I liked until
Right,
I started
right.
watching more of them, and I'm like, man, I really like me some documentaries.
Yeah, and we've shared some documentaries back and forth, quite a bit, and
So it's not like I'm just coming at this from a one-sided thing. I'm coming this from a lot of sides, not every side, because this is a multifaceted conversation.
Yes, very much so.
But I'm coming at this from a lot of sides, and I'm like, I just don't think you guys are treating this properly. For whatever reason it is that you've got these, your blinders are either too tight, or they're just not as wide as they could be.
I just don't think that, like, I mean, from especially based off of what Scorsese's saying, he said, he's watched a few, but he just couldn't really get through them. So it's like, well, you're obviously not looking at, like, the entirety of what, Marvel or DC is doing. And in Jodie Foster's case, it's like, I don't understand how you can, say that these films have nothing to say. Because that's basically what I took away from what she's saying there. Just based off of what you were saying. It sounds like she's saying these aren't saying anything. But it's like, are you crazy? Because these are telling very significant stories. And I think they're very timely and very prevalent stories about humanity and having to become more than what you are, especially in Marvel's case. And we've talked about that fucking a million times at this juncture.
Right.
That, the Marvel stories are about humans becoming more than humans. It's humans working their way up towards godhood. And it's about, overcoming your weakness. It's about, like, gaining strength and becoming better than what you are. And, and one thing we talked about, I think it was off mic, but, it's a really significant thing for me, is you have that first big argument between Steve and Tony in the first Avengers film. And, they're going back and forth and talking about how, you think you're hot shit, but you're not.
Right, so you're not the guy to make the sacrifice play,
you're not the guy to
lay
make the
down the
sacrifice
wire.
play. And Tony says, you're nothing but a science experiment. The only thing special about you came out of a bottle.
Right.
And then, here 10, 15 years later, however, it was 10 years between the first Avengers and Endgame, right?
I think so, something like that.
It was about 10 years, and here 10 years later, they bring that back. Because Iron Man wields Cap wields the hammer. So the only thing special about him is not out of a bottle.
Right.
And Tony makes the sacrifice play. That's so good. That's good storytelling. See, I'm not a film connoisseur quite like you, but
It's an evolution of the characters.
right, yeah. And we talked about that a lot in part 1, that, Marvel plays the long game. It's not going to be like, oh, in an hour and a half, it's, you're not going to see like this Bill Murray level of character development from Groundhog Day, where it's like, oh, you were a real asshole at the beginning of the movie, but now you're a good guy and you want to live in this town and you've enriched everybody's lives. That's not what they're doing. They're telling a 10-year-long story here. It's kind of like, it's kind of like how, Cerebus, you have to approach reading Cerebus as a 6,000-page story. You're not going to get like this little snippet out of like 20 issues or so.
And you mentioned that dynamic between Tony and Steve, which I think is kind of one of the fundamental things. Like whenever you have an Avengers movie, it brings everybody back and it regrounds everybody as to like who they are, and not just who they are as individuals, because we're getting that from their own movies, but it grounds them as to like, who are we as people, as a team? What ultimately is our purpose here?
Right.
Why do we do what we do?
Right.
Because none of that's really being explored in like any of the Captain America movies, any of the Thor movies, right? It's like they're off on their own adventures, but then you bring them all together and it's like, hey, we do this for this. In Age of Ultron, there's that whole scene, the firewood scene. When they're arguing, he says, isn't that why we fight? The good fight, so we can stop this, so we can go home,
Right.
And it's like that's why we're doing this. That's what this is all about. This is about us, doing this so that because we're in a position better than anybody else because we do have these abilities. Whether it's because I have a great suit of armor, because I'm a god with a magical hammer,
Right,
or
right.
I'm a science experiment that that can do things that other people can't. We do this because it's almost a great power responsibility thing. But we do this because we're better equipped at it than other people, and we have a better chance of stopping this and preventing this so that no more of this has to happen.
Right,
and if
right.
Steve gives the line, it's like, every time when someone tries to win a war before it starts, people die.
Right.
It's like, because then you're actually the one starting the war. You're trying to stop a war before it starts, but by doing that, you're actually starting the war. You're now the aggressor, and in that case, you're really the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
and that whole thing that comes into play there. It comes back, not so much in like Infinity War and Endgame, but those elements play out throughout the whole thing. And I'm gonna end my whole piece here with Spider-Man: Homecoming. Well, actually, I'm going to use Homecoming and Far From Home, and I know you haven't seen Far From Home.
Yeah, not yet.
But I'm going to end with both of those. Is that you look at someone like Spider-Man, and from Civil War, when Tony's talking to him, and he's like, why do you do this? And he, Spider-Man kind of rambles, which I think is really kind of cute, and it really kind of plays into the character and like the whole teenage aspect of it, when he's like, well, I'd love to play football, but I can't because I couldn't do that before, so I can't do it now.
Right.
It's like,
right.
I have these gifts, but I can't use them to benefit myself. That's not right. That's not how it is.
Right.
Because it's not like everybody in the world has this. It's not like, I went to college and I learned a lot of stuff, so now I can be like an engineer.
Right.
But most people can do that. They can go to college, or they can get books, they can learn, and they can learn these skills, and then possibly move into that occupation.
Right.
But this isn't the same thing. I have a gift that the majority of people in the world, like 99.99% of people, will never have. I have a duty to do something good with this, and not be selfish with it.
Right.
And so that's why I do what I do. Yeah. And then you've got the scene in Homecoming where he's talking to Iron Man, and they're having the conversation, and he's like, "Don't take it away from me." He goes, "The suit is all I have. I'm nothing without it." And he goes, everyone knows the scene. It's like, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it.
Right.
That's the whole thing there. It's like, the suit is not what makes you Spider-Man. You're Spider-Man with or without the suit. You started being Spider-Man because you had these gifts. The suit didn't give you those gifts. Mm-hmm. You've started using this as a crutch, and you've started thinking that that because of that you can do more, and you're forgetting your purpose and where you fall, where you lie within all of this and the role that you play. So, and it's like, being, if it was just a matter of having a suit, I'd just give everybody a suit, but that's not it. You have to have the heart to wear the suit.
Right.
And that's why in Iron Man 2, when Tony is like, I could give Rhodes a suit, but it's not the same thing. Rhodes has to come and get it from me. And he is like, it's almost like he's challenging him, because he's like, if he gave it to him suit one, he's going to tell it right, he's dying, which he didn't want to do. But the other thing is, like, he has to take it from me for the right reason.
Right.
And that right reason is because it's a lot of power, and it needs to be in responsible hands, and you are not those hands.
Yeah. It's interesting that you brought up like the firewood scene, because something we've discussed very often is that so much of what defines the Avenger films for us are the scenes from their downtime,
Mm-hmm.
Like at the beginning of Ultron, where they're just like all sitting around and they're just like talking shop and talking shit, and they all start taking turns trying to lift Thor's hammer and all that, and like that tells us so much more about the characters, and that's what tells me that these films have something to say, because we don't think of it as like, we don't think of it as calling him Captain America first. We call him Steve first.
Right.
Because this is Steve's story. He represents Captain America. He represents what Captain America is about, but it's Steve's story. It's his arc. And, this isn't the story of Iron Man. This is the story of Tony Stark. This is Tony Stark, finding his heart, so to speak, and making the sacrifice play. It's Tony's story. It's not the story of Iron Man. So
and you talk about that scene in Age of Ultron, mm-hmm. and I think there's a lot of nuances that I think unless you're like a true fan of seeing these movies like over and over again, and I've told this before to people, when I'm at work, I've got Age of Ultron on my phone, and I will play it, and I'll turn my screen off, and I'm just listening to the dialogue. Mm-hmm. I've seen movies several times, and I'm listening to it, and it's probably because I love Ultron's dialogue, which we're going to do a whole separate podcast on Ultron.
I need to rewatch it before we do that podcast.
But
speaking of which,
but there's so much nuance in there that you miss, and I think in some cases these people are missing the nuance that makes those movies great, because there's so much being thrown at the screen as far as a spectacle that you're missing all the stuff that lies underneath. And I think other people are, and not everybody, but I think some people are. And I'm referencing this particular moment right here, and I'm gonna get back to my Spider-Man thing, but it's the scene when they're picking up the hammer, and I think it's I think it's Banner that points to Black Widow. Is that Natasha, and she goes, "Oh no, that's not a question I need answered."
Right.
And she's the only one that declines to try to pick up the hammer.
Right.
Because one, she knows who she is.
Mm-hmm.
She knows what she's done, and she makes that really clear, or that point is made very, very clear in Avengers when she says, I've got red in my ledger and I want to clear it out. And Loki's like, he goes, but can you clear out that much red? He goes, your ledger is overflowing with red. It's gushing red. Yeah, and he starts mentioning all these things that she's done. And of course, she pretends like they're hurting her for his sake, but we know that they're hurting her really. And I think part of that is kind of like when Thor is dropped out of the helicarrier in the first movie, and he goes to pick up his hammer and he hesitates because the helicarrier is falling. Cole, I don't think he's aware that Coulson's been. No, he was, because he saw Coulson get stabbed by Loki before he dropped him. Yeah. And so he says that Coulson's dead. The helicarrier is crashing. They have lost the day. And he goes to pick up that hammer, and at that moment, he's afraid he may not be worthy.
Right.
And he's afraid to pick it up. He's afraid to grab that and not be able to pick it up. And that's a great moment. And the same thing with Natasha. When you look at that and you look at it, she's not saying that, oh no, I know I'm not worthy of picking up the hammer, because the whole point of her being in S.H.I.E.L.D. is to be someone better. And she says that in Winter Soldier when she's like, I thought I was, getting rid of my past. I was becoming something better. I just traded, S.H.I.E.L.D., like the KGB for Hydra, It's like, I thought I was getting better. I was using my skills to fight the good fight. I was trying to become a better person. Barton saw something in me that was better, and he brought me into S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
And all that. And then, she has that whole moment of connecting with Steve in the car when they're going to New Jersey and all that. So a big part of that is she's trying to redeem herself, trying to be better. And part of the thing is she knows she can't pick up the hammer, but at the same time, she's afraid of grabbing it and just knowing that, in some ways she's saying, I'm still not there.
Right.
Out of everything I've done, I've still either I'm not capable of being better or of redeeming myself, or I still got a long way to go. And sometimes, even though we know that, we don't want to face that. We don't want to face it. It's easier for us to just say, oh, I can't. I know I can't do it. Then to get out there and prove it to ourselves that we can't. Because that's even demoralizing. As long as I say I can't, I can still try to do it and try to be better. But as soon as you've shown me that I can't do it, then I stop trying at all.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things where she's like, she's like, I know I can't do it, and so I'm not even going to try, because I don't need that put in my face. As long as it's not there in my face, I can continue to try to be better.
Yeah. So it is a good time for us to take a break. So hey, enjoy these ads, everybody. These sweet, sweet ads.
Oh god, they're so sweet. Like a spicy chicken sandwich.
Excelsior, true believers. There's a new podcast called In the Gutter, starring yours truly, Wallcrawler 1.
And Turk182 from the podcast Our Moms Think We're Funny.
In the Gutters will explore all of comicdom, from the depths of the Atlantean oceans all the way to the up, and aways of the expanses of the multiverses.
We'll sleep, eat, and full bleed from the local comic shops to the grave for you here on In the Gutters. Please join us for our premiere podcast found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Spotify, and CastBox.
Also, expect X-Men in Claremont.
Lots of X-Men in Claremont.
And we're back.
Okay. So the other thing I was going to say is, like, we talk about the nuance in the character and the story, and I think there's a lot of nuance in Ultron. Is more just a villain, but we keep saying we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But I was going back to Spider-Man thing. In Far From Home, one of the whole things of Far From Home is that Peter is like, you know what, I've done the superhero thing, I've done all this stuff, and it was like being a hero was fun. Yes, it was challenging, it was kind of scary, but I'm saving lives. And then after everything with the Gauntlet and Tony being killed, and then it's like there was a level of responsibility I was ready for, but it was a level of responsibility that only pertained to me. When I go out there and I'm fighting crime, I'm responsible for all that stuff because I put myself out there to be responsible, But now responsibility is being thrust upon me. People are asking me, are you the next Tony Stark? Are you the leader of the Avengers?
Right.
That's more than I'm ready for, and I just really want to be like, I want to be a kid. Being a part-time hero is one thing, but I can't be a full-time hero. I thought I wanted to, which is what he learns in the first one. It's like, I thought I wanted to be a full-time hero when he's like, hey, you ready to come be a part of the Avengers? Like, no, sorry, Mr. Stark. I think I'm just going to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Right.
And he kind of learns his role. Then he goes through all that stuff, and he comes to it, and he's like, this is such a much bigger scale of things. And he's like, and I'm really I'm just not ready for it. I'm not. And it's like, I don't want to not be a hero, but I just, I also want to be just a person that, and can't I just be a person?
Right.
And he learns that you can be, but it's not as easy as it looks. And when you take on this role, being a person unfortunately becomes secondary to being this. And there's so much more, and that's him learning this lesson of like what it means to be a hero, and that you can't just turn it off. It's not something you just do when you want to. It's not like me playing Spider-Man on the PS4. I can be Spider-Man whenever it's good for me. Right. And it's like, oh, now I got the time to be Spider-Man for like the next hour before I've got to go do this thing. Right. And it's like, no, if playing Spider-Man and saving people was my job, then that's what I do. I sit down and I play Spider-Man on PS4, all day and night, and then, I stop and, I catch some sleep when I can. But so let's imagine if Spider-Man was like an online game, and I was constantly responding to emergencies, and, as a 24-hour online game, and now say I'm kind of tired, I got to go to sleep, and I recognize that, while I'm sleeping, there's some crimes that are going on around me that are happening, and people are not being caught or brought to justice. Right. And then, when I get up, I got to go to the bathroom. I can't go to freaking IHOP and have breakfast there. I've got to grab something like a Nutrient bar from upstairs and get back down to saving the world. Yeah. And using this context there, I'm playing Spider-Man. That's my job. Someone else in this online game is playing, Iron Man. Someone else is playing Wolverine or whatever. But this is what we're doing. Right. And I'm playing just that one character in this big online world. And that means that someone out there is playing, a villain. And so the days that I'm not doing this, I can't just do it when it's convenient for me. Right. I can't work a full-time job and then come home and be Spider-Man for about an hour or so. Right. I can't just go to the movies whenever I want to, because when I'm doing that, yes, there's other people out there playing their roles, but if they're playing in the same way I am, then there's a shit ton of people out there just doing all kinds of bad stuff. Oh, yeah. So I've got to make these sacrifices. And that's what that whole movie is about, is like him making a sacrifice, saying, if this is what I'm going to do, then I've got to do it this way, and I've got to, I've got to build a support network. I've got to bring these people in, and I've got to recognize exactly what it is I'm getting myself into. It's almost the same when people are saying that they're going to, I'm going to get a dog. It's like, do you really know what that entails? Right, yes, I know you see the commercials and you're running in the field and stuff like that, but,
it's the people who are like, our relationship's struggling, but we're going to fix it. We're having a baby.
Right. It's like, what? That dog's got to be taken out and got to be walked, even when it's raining. Mm-hmm. Even when there's snow outside. Even when when you're tired as hell, or you're sick and you're in bed, someone's got to take that dog out. Mm-hmm. And if you can't do it, you need to make sure that someone else can. And that's a responsibility that people don't think about. And it's kind of the same way, but these are the nuances that you find in these movies there, when they're like, hey, I've got to do these things here. I have to do this. Right. And then, like, what does it say about me? And I think another thing with the Marvel movies that we miss in a lot of other things is this underlying, principle, which you see more in Iron Man, is like, I don't have to be a 100% good person. Right. To do the right thing and to be a quote unquote hero. What really matters is that I want to be a good person. I have the drive to be a good person, and that I may slip up sometimes. I may not do everything right, but I want to be a good person. Right. Yeah. And I'm trying to be. It's just like I say with myself and everything. I know there's some things that I do wrong, and there's some qualities I have that are not the best, but I recognize those, and I make efforts to make those better. And as long as you recognize that, and you're trying to make yourself better and trying to improve those things about you, that's what makes you a good person. Right, yeah. And that's what we see in some of these things here. And it really is ultimately just like when I watch White Man Can't Jump, Right, dude. Every time I watch that movie, I want to go out and shoot ball. I freaking suck. Me shooting basketball after watching that movie is like Black Widow trying to pick up Thor's hammer. No, it's just like, that's a good way to shut me down. Dude, I've torn up my black card so many times after trying to play basketball. It's not even funny. And you only get one of those too, so it's not like I lost mine and I can go back and get another one. No,
you just have to tape it back up.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you would be surprised. Like, you can't tear up something that's laminated. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. If you get upset enough, yes, you can. But it's like, and I watch a movie and it fuels me. It energizes me. You watch like a nice action movie. It's like, oh man, it's like, you get pumped up.
Yeah, and we've talked about like same thing with Fight Club, where it's like you watch Fight Club and it's like, man, I want to get in a fight. I really want to get in a fight, and then you realize like, oh yeah, fighting hurts.
Yeah,
I almost forgot.
Yeah, I don't want to get my nose broken. Yeah, no, I don't want any of that stuff to happen. I don't want to get,
So maybe I do want to die without any scars. I mean.
Yeah, I don't want to get like the side of my cheek cut open and a wound that won't ever heal. But when you watch a movie, a really good superhero movie, and you see these things, you're like, I want to help people.
Yeah, it gives you something to believe in.
Right. And Walcrawl and I talked about that, kind of like what makes a comic book fan a comic book fan. It's this, like, a lot of comic book fans, it's like, it's not that I want to be a hero, which in some cases you want to be a hero, but it's like, these are people represent some of like the best qualities of people, in these books. And
well, I think
inside, that's the person I want to be. I want to be a good person. If I can't, quote unquote, be a hero, I can't be running around saving the day. I do want to be a good person.
Yeah.
And I like seeing, good people, even if it's a fictional story of good people doing good things. And that's, it's something, I'm not going to say it because I read comic book, it makes me want to, strive to do this, but it's like, it's surrounding myself with that positivity.
Yeah.
And then also watching people struggle with it.
Yeah.
Watching people struggle with doing that. And, the times that Peter Parker has said, I quit. I'm not going to be Spider-Man anymore.
Right. I can't do it.
Right. And then, and then coming back to it and saying, yeah, just like you and I, when we talked about how many times you wanted to quit drawing, quit writing, and you're like, it's who I am. I can't quit these things. I can't. And if I did, there would be so much of me missing. I'm just jumping from one thing to the next, but I think that it's just showing that there's so many different levels to comic book characters and stories and movies that you kind of see these things. You can kind of see them reflect in so many different avenues. But I'm going to go to Watchmen. Dan Dryback.
Yeah.
When he's not in the suit, he feels lost in the world. He feels purposeless, and he's impotent.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel like a man. He doesn't feel like a person. Like he contributes to anything when he's not in the suit.
Yeah, and just like that moment where he like meets up with Rorschach and he's just like, Rorschach, whatever happened to the good old days? And Rorschach's just like, you quit.
Yeah.
And, I think you really hit the nail on the head with like, especially in the Marvel films, not so much the DC films. But the Marvel films, it's all about people doing the right thing in spite of themselves,
Right.
Like, they do have flaws, they do have weaknesses, they do have shortcomings, but they're still going to push on and do the right thing. And it's just like the first Narnia story, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You have the moment where Peter fights the wolf. He fights, what's his name? Ulrich, I think his name is. The witch's wolf chieftain.
Okay.
And so, he goes, and he fights it, and he manages to kill it. And Aslan is knighting him, and he's making him Sir Peter Wolfsbane. And he says, no, you don't need to be making me a knight, because I didn't feel brave. I was scared out of my mind going into that fight. I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to run away. And Aslan was like, but that's not what bravery is.
Right.
Bravery is not feeling fear. Only a fool feels absolutely no fear. Bravery is feeling fear and pushing on and doing the right thing in spite of feeling that fear. And
you see the smile on my face.
Yeah.
Because you know what I'm thinking right now.
Not specifically.
Yeah, you do. Because you just said it.
I'm sure I will as soon as you say it. But...
And because we just watched it. You're not brave.
Oh, you're not brave.
Men are brave. Right. And that's the thing too. Again, you're taking that thing and it goes right into like the Batman Superman thing was like when he says that, when Batman says that to Superman and he says you're not brave, men are brave, which we both said is such a beautiful line.
It's fantastic.
It's because Bravery is doing something when you are scared shitless and you don't know the outcome and you're just hoping for the best, but you're doing it because it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And
you have everything to lose.
Right. And you've got everything working against you. When you're Superman and you've got that kind of power and you go into those things, you don't go in there with any kind of fear at all. So that's not bravery because you don't have anything to lose. You're not brave. Men are mortal. Men are weak. Men are vulnerable. And men as in like the human race.
Right,
you know,
right.
Men or mankind, they're brave.
Yeah.
You're not. You know, and so that's the exact same thing in two different sources from two different genres.
Yeah.
You know, one that's probably more respected than the other one.
Oh, yeah, Narnia is very respected.
than this. But you're talking about the exact same thing. It's that same part there. And
it's telling the same universal truth, and I've talked about that kind of thing with, like, Doug TenNapel's big on this kind of thing. That, like, you know, to him, he's always bemoaning that our culture has lost fairy tale as a respected thing. You know, that, like, you know, you have guys like C.S. Lewis, like Tolkien, like G.K. Chesterton, who they used fairy tales to tell truths. And, you know, TenNapel's big things like, you know, just because a story is not scientifically factual or historically accurate doesn't mean it's not true. And when you're telling these, like, these high fantasy stories, when you're telling these fairy tale things, you're telling truths about humanity and about people. And that goes back into, like, the bravery thing, or like, you know, what is it to have lost, or what is it to find, you know, to find the strength to do the right thing in spite of yourself. You know, that's like, it's telling truths. So I think that kind of brings it back around to Jodie Foster saying, oh, you know, there's more, you know, important stories that can be told. It's like, but is there, though? Because, like, these are telling, you know, timeless truths.
Or does that somehow make these meritless?
Right, yeah.
And there's
plus, it's not like they're taking away from, you know, it's not like Hollywood's out there going, oh, you know, we really want to tell this story, but we got to make this other superhero film. Sorry.
Right.
It's like, that's not how Hollywood works. But
you know, one of the things, and you know, just going and just showing that these movies have a lot of heart. The right was not every superhero movie is fantastic.
Right.
Far from it. But the ones that are well done, and you can tell the ones that are well done, and we keep talking about Marvel ones. There's others out there, but I think those are really the most prominent that people that can really latch onto easily enough. But the ones that are well done have these moments that are, like you said it yourself, this is a story about Tony, it's about Steve, it's about these people, it's not about Iron Man, it's not about Captain America. And we see that when we kind of see, you know, who these people are and what they're made up of. And one of the, I think, scenes that really kind of shows who these people are and the loss that they have. And it's probably, to me, it's such a heartbreaking scene. It really is. And when I think about it, I'm like, I can only imagine how much that would hurt.
Yeah.
Is in Civil War. It's in Civil War when Steve goes to see Peggy Carter.
Oh, yeah.
And she's talking to him, and they're reliving the good days and stuff and all that, and it's just so great. And he's sitting there, and she's in the hospital bed, and then she starts to cough and choke, and he gives her some water. And then she looks at him and she's like, Steve, you're alive. And like her Alzheimer's or dementia. And it's like, you don't know how many times he's gone through that, where he's had to go through that whole thing of that recognition in her eyes of that, oh my God, you're alive. It's like, we just had a whole conversation about all this stuff. And now I've got to see that in you again. And that's not the first time. You know, it's not the first time.
Oh, absolutely not.
and you can see it in his face where he's like, I lost her again. Now we're starting this over again. And it's as painful for him as it is for her.
Yeah, because he's losing her daily now.
Right. And like, yes, you've probably seen it in the Notebook or some shit like that. But again, we're talking about Captain America here. So you're taking this thing, you're putting Steve into it, and you're showing what he's made of.
Yeah.
Right.
Who's a national symbol, by the way. You know, I mean, Captain America represents what, like, all World War II vets represent. You know, he represents, like, you know, rising up to something that ultimately wasn't even your problem and getting involved because that's what you kind of have to do.
Right.
And that's basically what America did with World War II, where it's like, you know what, we've been out of this, but we can't keep ignoring this kind of thing.
Right.
So, which again, that's a timeless truth. That's something that applies to everybody, multiple generations. So that's not a movie with nothing to say.
Right. And I'm just it's coming all the way back around, in this case, back to Spider-Man Homecoming, which is, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. Mm-hmm. It's the character that makes that suit work, whether it's just a Captain America suit with like plate mail, or whether it's a suit of armor, or whether it's a Spider-Man costume. It's the character that makes that suit work, not the suit itself. You can't just put anybody in it.
Right.
And that's what you see with these movies. You see these people that are, that suit is a symbol, but it's the person inside of it that is what really makes that symbol stand out. It's what makes that symbol work, because you can put anybody in a symbol, and that doesn't mean it's going to be shit.
Right.
It's like, and I'm not saying anything political, about right now, but just think about how many people have had the mantle of president, but haven't been able to live up to your ideals of what a president is. Not talking about anybody in particular or whatever, but your ideals. As long as you've been alive, right? And I've gone through, I don't know, like 5 or 6 different presidents in my lifetime, and and it's like, but here's the title here's the title. You have this title of president, and that means something. But how many of them have actually lived up to my expectations of that? So it's not just the title that makes you who you are. I can't just start calling myself Captain America and you guys are going to believe that's who I am.
Right.
No, it's the person that makes that title work, no matter what that title is.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is a beautiful way of putting that.
Yeah. And we get, and I think a true superhero movie, not only does it have to have a good heart and has to have a good story, just like any movie does, but you have to have a really good, strong character that makes you believe in whatever it is they're doing.
Right.
And in this case, you have to build that person up, and you have to make them something that is worth caring about and worth respecting and worth following. And if you don't have that, the movies fall flat. And I don't think, with the exception of Captain Marvel, which we've talked about again, I'm not going to try to defend my stance on Captain Marvel, but with the exception of Captain Marvel, I don't think that I think we've seen that in all the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've seen that in a lot of the other ones that have followed.
Yeah, no, and I mean we've made our statements about DC films before, and about the DC universe in general. But yeah, it's been a big thing. I've said multiple podcasts now that my big thing is I want to see you as a creative giving a damn. I want you to demonstrate that you care about this franchise, and if it's a story you care about, that's going to help me care about it. Very much so.
Right.
And, that's what I see in the Marvel films. Not only, Jodie Foster, do I think they have something to say, and they're saying something very, very significant that is very needed for today's culture. Very needed for today's culture. But it is something that the guys behind it are very passionate about, and they care very much about, and they care about the message that they're trying to convey. So,
and you know what? Despite whatever she has to say about them, I would love to see Jodie Foster in a Marvel movie.
Oh yeah,
but only if the character fit her. I wouldn't just want to see her just tossing there for anything.
Right.
But if there was a character that I looked at, like, oh, you know what? Jodie Foster would really make that character shine. She would bring that character to life the way it needs to be done. I'd be all about it.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I haven't seen a character that I think that she could embody that would be representative of the skill that she would bring.
Right. Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that there. I mean, it doesn't mean there isn't one. There's a ton of them out there, right? But it just means that I haven't. There isn't one right now that would be able to be put into like the cinematic universe.
Right.
That'd be like, she would be the person for that role.
Yeah, they just haven't explored that element of the universe yet.
Right. And
I think it's important for us to bring up that in both of these situations, both with Scorsese and Foster, that we're not being all pissy and being like, well, you're wrong and you're stupid, and it's not that. It's more like, I kind of hate for you that you're not getting anything out of this because it's so good. And, I've felt this way in, showing people, certain songs or certain movies that, it pains me that they're not getting as much joy and fulfillment out of it as I am. And, good example is Oldboy. I showed Camelot Oldboy because, to me, Oldboy is a fucking phenomenal movie. Oldboy is so good.
It's so good.
And And so, like, and, I showed my sister, and she was like, yeah, that was really good. And I told you she, like, predicted the plot twist to it, which surprised the fuck out of me. But, like, she was like, yeah, that was good. But then I showed Camelot, and he was like,
but old boy. I'm sorry, I should have said, but Desu.
but Desu, you're my stepbrother. But yeah, like, I showed Camelot, and at the end of it, like, he watches it, and he was like, huh. Well, I mean, the hammer scene was cool, but that was a really hard movie to watch. And I was like, what? It's like, that was a great movie. He was like, it was okay. It was a slog. And it was like, okay, you know what? Fuck you, first of all. No, I mean, we had a pretty, like, civil discussion about it, but it's like, I hate that, because to me, that was like, damn, that was a great movie. And then, like, to see somebody like, oh, that was a slog to get through, it's like, I hate that for you.
Say it's a slog. Say it's a slog again. I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker.
So, like, and, just, I hate that kind of thing. And it's just like, I've had people where, like, I'll say, hey, listen to the song, this is really good. And they'll just be like, yeah, I didn't really like the guy's voice. And it's like, oh, come on!
Yeah, yeah, because, well, I told you that, Crow fan we talked about, and I asked him if he liked Beck. He's like, no, I don't like Beck.
Yeah,
like, wow,
that's shocking.
Not like Beck. But we talked about this with. This may be part of what's. I mean, I don't presume to know what's going on in their heads, but we talked about this during our podcast with Jay O'Boyer about horror movies and how watching a horror movie in the right venue with the right audience or with an audience at all can make the difference with with your reaction to it. And if that's not something as for a comic book movie is something I can see you not liking a comic book movie. It's like, I don't really like comic books, right? When you're not liking comic movies, that's fine. But I think also part of it is if you just try to watch one at home, oh, here, it's on Netflix, let me watch it. This is kind of boring,
Right,
not saying you have to watch in a theater, you have to watch with an audience, but if it's not something that that it has some kind of a history to it, and something that you're not watching it with somebody, not to give you commentary to fill you in, but if you're not watching it with somebody to kind of get that, that vibe, to really set that mood and get that proper atmosphere, you're probably not going to like it because you're like, okay, here's something I don't know anything about. I'm getting to it. I'm like, what's this world about?
Right,
what?
Right.
This guy makes a suit of armor. I mean, it's like, and, I mean, granted, I've told this a lot of times. We talk about like Iron Man. He's got no padding in that armor. There's no cushion in there. He's getting knocked about, and sometimes you do see him. He's all bruised up and stuff, but he's really just flying around in a tin can. He's got no right. He's got no cushion in there, no insulation or anything. So, but again, you kind of suspend that disbelief because when you try to make things way too accurate, you kind of lose it. Which I think is the problem with Ang Lee's Hulk is that he tried way too hard to explain how the Hulk could be a real thing. It's like, oh, you're killing me with this, dude.
Yeah, you don't want that. But I think you hit the nail on the head there that, like, you gotta be in the right mindset for any movie at all. And case in point for me would be Donnie Darko. I didn't go into that in the right mindset. Like, I as I was watching it, I was like, as much of a classic as people are saying this is, I don't think it's for me. And I had to, like, revisit it later when I was like, oh, so it's this kind of a movie. And, it's that kind of thing. And, just like, when I watched Natural Born Killers, I did happen to be in the right mindset for that because I kind of knew what I was getting into. But, like, if I hadn't been expecting it, then I would not have been in the right mindset for that movie.
Right.
And then you would have somebody saying, oh, it's not a good movie. It's like, well, it is a good movie. It's a very good movie. It's a classic. You just have to go into it in the right mindset. And I think that, like, Scorsese and Foster aren't going into these movies with the right mindset.
Right.
Because they have this predetermined notion of what they think a movie should be. And then, it's like, well, you're not getting anything out of it because you're not trying to get anything out of it, which is kind of a shitty way to go into a movie.
and I if you don't have someone with you to kind of, to kind of help kind of foster that. Yeah, we've talked about this several times, and I seem like we keep saying it. We've talked about this before, but there's also the whole notion of if you don't have people around you that bring something different into your life, then you tend to stay within your comfortable zone.
Right.
Whether that's good or bad, but a lot of times that's bad because it does mean that you don't get a chance to experience things that you would enjoy because they're foreign to you.
Right.
And you don't have anyone to kind of help either encourage you into it or ease you into it or whatever it may be, but you don't have anyone to bring that to bring you to it or bring it to you. Mm-hmm. So if this is not something, a world that you know, or maybe even a world you like, and I understand people will be like, if you told me I don't like superhero movies, I just don't like comic books, I'd be like, all right, cool. But to say they're not cinema, then I'm like, oh, come on, really?
Yeah.
I mean, and I know that after seeing all this stuff, to turn around and be like, yeah, but this shit really isn't cinema. But if you had said something like, Adam Sandler movies are killing the streaming service Netflix, because his movies are not cinema, I'd be like, yeah, you're right, So I know it's bad for me to say defend one thing and not another, but it's like there are other things that are really destroying stuff, like again the whole lost footage, POV, paranormal, boring shits or whatever it is. But you didn't say that about them, and those movies are raking in tons of money. They're getting all these crappy ass sequels and stuff that are just nothing at all to them. Well, but you're not saying anything about them, but you're saying something about these movies. And it's like, well, why are these things out? Because they're making so much more than those, but it's also costing So when you say the Avengers made $1 billion, the Avengers also cost $250 million or $350 million, right?
Right.
As with this movie right here, cost the studio $100,000 and it made $30 million.
Yeah.
Comparatively, this movie was way more productive as far as monetarily goes than this one here. Mm-hmm. And sure, this one's the franchising, it's you got the t-shirts, you got the toys, you got the this, you got that, and all that kind of stuff. And maybe that's the issue with this. They're pushing more to that because there's so much more peripheral that can sell, and they feel like that's really what's driving it is the peripheral. Kind of I love the G.I. Joe cartoon and the Transformers cartoon. Only now to find out that these cartoons weren't cartoons, they were commercials. What they wanted to sell were toys,
and that's the way the Ninja Turtles cartoon was back in the day too.
Right. It was it wasn't about hey, people really like this cartoon, so now we're gonna make some toys. It's like, hey, we want to sell these toys, let's make a cartoon. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I feel so used now.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the aspect you're coming from is you're pushing so much here, so you can sell the t-shirts, the backpacks, the this, the that, and you're using movies to do that. You're using cinema to do that with. And so, in a way, you're kind of, you're destabilizing cinema because you're just using it as a big ass commercial that you're making tons of money off of, and then to make tons of money off of.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I don't see it that way.
I don't either. I mean, and it's just, and it goes back to they care too much about the franchise, I think. And I'm sure the Disney execs at the very tippy top don't. I'm sure to them this is a commercial, but I mean, you look at the directors behind it, and it's like. That there's too much passion going into this for it to just be that.
So I told you I've been catching up on Community because I never got a chance to watch it back in the day when it came out, which sucks because now, as I'm watching it, I'm really enjoying it. I've got no one to talk to Community about because everyone else is like, oh yeah, I watched that a long time ago. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. I'm like, you're just now finding it. So I feel bad too. It's like, you're just now finding out about this. Like, no, I knew about it. I just never had the avenue to watch it before, and now I do.
Right.
But the Russo brothers directed Community, a lot of episodes of Community, and then they're the ones that directed, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and then Civil War, and then the Avengers and all that. Mm-hmm. There is nothing about their direction of any of the episodes of Community, even the paintball fight wars and all that kind of stuff. You have some interesting things they do, but there's nothing about that I would have looked at and said, yeah, you've shown me that you can direct something like Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
In just that, but they did, and obviously Winter Soldier is a fantastic movie. It's very well directed. But again, that's a passion they brought to it. They had a passion for that, and even if they were at the time, it was like, this is all we've done this half-hour TV series. Now we're talking about doing a 2.5-hour movie,
right?
That's got a lot more action and this and that, and I've also got a lot more equipment to work with. I got freaking cranes and stuff to use that I didn't use before because the TV series didn't warrant that. And now I've got all this extra stuff to use that now you cannot use, but I kind of have to use it to make the kind of movie that I need to make. But I've got a passion to do it.
Right.
And again, I've got a desire, I've got a drive. It's something I want to do. It means a lot to me. And with that, I'm not saying that I can do anything, but I can do something fantastic.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, I think they're just underestimating it, and again, it's more of like a, well, it's your loss kind of thing,
Hmm.
Like, I think about how, if I had, if I had continued to have a stick up my ass about anime to the point of refusing to watch Akira, you know, it's like, well, I would have been missing out on a phenomenal, beautiful work of art with a really good story to it. And it's like, that would have been my loss. And, I hate that, like, they're kind of depriving themselves, and it sounds like, it feels to me like they're just hating on it because it's popular, and I don't want to just, like, accuse them of that being all they're doing. I'm sure they have, like, valid reasons for saying what they're saying, but I'm just saying I disagree with their take on it.
So yeah, like I said, I'm not really disappointed, because I don't really know them enough to. But from what I know about them and like their take on like this is not cinema, I'm like, that kind of hurts.
Yeah,
That kind of hurts. So
yeah, because it's like, it's like, it just feels like they're missing the forest for the trees. Basically, it's like, how are you not seeing the cinema in here?
yeah, I agree. There's so many great cinematic moments in those movies, and there's such a heart to them, and there's so much more than just action. I mean, Fast and Furious, that's just action for the sake of action,
Right.
And that's all it is. Even when I watch Hobbs and Shaw, which I don't like Fast and Furious. I've never really watched anything except for the first one and the third one. But I did end up watching Hobbs and Shaw, and it was entertaining. It really was. It's a big deviation from the series, and there are moments in that where they're like, we're not taking this seriously at all, not at all.
Right.
So, and that is pure action and adrenaline for the sake of it. And I don't think you can compare something like that to Marvel movies. You may be
Right.
with some of the other like superhero like franchise type movies or whatever. But I don't think not to any of those.
Right, yeah.
Uh-huh.
It feels to me like if somebody were to say that, like, Banksy isn't art,
Right, because he's not in a museum.
Right. Well, he's been in a museum, but it's like, I don't.
Well, yeah, we saw what happened when he was in a museum.
But it's just like, I can just, I can just hear somebody with like Scorsese or Foster's position being like, "Oh, I don't really consider graffiti to be art. I don't think of Banksy as art. I've tried to look at his stuff and I just couldn't get into it." And it's like, this guy has more to say than most modern artists. Because at the same time you would be telling me Banksy's not an artist, you're also the same motherfucker paying $100,000 for a banana duct taped to a wall. So,
Yeah,
sorry.
I thought that was really bullshit.
yeah.
I mean, no, I mean, like when I heard the story, it's like this is art. And I'm like, no, someone's bullshitting me, right? Someone is bullshitting me that you could call that art.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, that's just how it makes me feel the same way as if hearing that would make me feel, which I've never heard somebody say that they don't consider Banksy art. But it's just like, it's that level of like, well, how are you not seeing it? How are you not seeing just how much they have to say with this? And it's just like, I hate it for you. So, but yeah, we've been going for a pretty significant amount of time.
Yeah.
So,
But this was something we've been wanting to talk about for a while, and we hadn't done it yet. And I think it's good to just kind of finally, get off our chest and talk. And I'm not saying anything bad about Scorsese or Jodie Foster, and it doesn't change my opinions of their movies, of their talent, and their past work, their future work, or anything else. I just like I said, I saw that and I was like, man, knowing you for the filmmakers that you are, and I didn't expect you to take that kind of stance. Other people I could see, but I see more of your take on what cinema is and what it can be and what it stands for, across a broad spectrum. And I was just kind of shocked to hear them just kind of like almost as if they were just poking that, as opposed to some of the many other things out there. And maybe it's because they don't respect those things at all, and this one seems like it's getting more respect, and they don't think it should.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know why. And I don't technically need to know why. They don't owe me any kind of explanation for their thoughts or whatever. But I said I was really shocked because I'm like, hey, I see you guys as being, as looking at filmmaking and movies in a much bigger light than just this one thing. And that's how their comments came across to me.
Right.
Was that we only see it in one way, and if it doesn't fit that, then it's not worthy of being called a movie.
Right, yeah. So yeah, that's just our take on it. But hey, thanks for giving us a listen, everybody.
Yeah, man. And I'd love to say that I would be interested in hearing, how you guys feel about it. But again, that's going to be a long conversation that, I don't really, not that I don't feel like having in like a, no, I'm going to be honest. I don't really feel like having it in a Twitter conversation or in a YouTube. If you catch us at a con, you want a conversation, that's great. I prefer face-to-face over something that's, written where you don't have any kind of context about it at all, and you really kind of limited in what you can say because there's no back and forth. There's no interaction between us actually debating points. It's just me telling you what I think and you tell me what you think, but we can't really discuss it. So no, I'm not interested in hearing that in that forum because it's not a true conversation. It's just both of us just saying, how we feel. And but yeah, if you see us at a con or something like that and you want to debate this or not debate, discuss this further, I'd love to have that discussion. Because I think it's good to talk things out, even if we walk away with it, not having changed anything, because I don't think that a conversation should be entered into with my plan here is to change your mind. My plan here is to let you know exactly how I feel about something and to learn why you feel about something. And maybe by learning why you're passionate about something or your thoughts on it may change how I feel about it. And it hopefully give me some new light, shed some new light on it, or open up a new avenue of thought that I hadn't considered before. Even if I don't change my viewpoint, at least I have a better understanding of why you feel the way you do, and I can respect that. Even if I don't change, my thinking of it. But that's how to me that's how a conversation needs to be entered. Is that I want to learn why you feel the way you do, and I want to really make sure that why I feel the way I do is clear. But I'm not coming into it to change your mind.
Right. Yeah.
So if you guys want to have a conversation like that, I am more than willing.
Yeah, definitely. But that's all the time we have for today, folks. So thanks for giving us a listen, and I second what Turk said with regard to all that. I think this would be an interesting conversation to have face to face, but online debate is tiring.
Yeah, it is.
It's just tiresome. But yeah, no, that's our take on it. So I would actually love to have a back and forth with either Scorsese or Foster on this. I think that would be really, really interesting.
Yep.
But yeah, anyways, so lots of love, everybody. We will catch you guys later.
Zang, yo.
All right there, folks. That was Our Moms Think We're Funny. Let's give them a hand.